I'm serious. I'm ready to hand the podcast right off to you, Tom.
I'm ready to go to my next destination, but thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. I'd be happy to. I'm sure the pay is good, right?
Of course. You get a free bottle of water.
Free bottle of water. Still waiting for my Chick-fil-A, right?
Well, that is true.
I did ask for that last time. I see where I rank, right?
Well, they just introduced macaroni and cheese this week.
Did they now?
So maybe we'll get a supply of that.
Shouldn't that be in here, right? Just a thought.
Maybe the next contract, the next time we bring you in.
There you go.
Hey, everybody. This is Mike Dyer of the WCPO High School Insider Podcast, joined by the legend.
Sheesh. No,
Tom
you know what a legend
Gamble.
means? You're old. It means nothing. And look at me. People, I don't wear glasses anymore. I've lost weight. I've had a hell of a fun summer.
I know you have.
A torn and detached retina. Don't ask how. I have no earthly idea. 2 eye surgeries. Still recovery. Allegedly, at some point, I'll be able to see again. For now, I see partially. Sucks.
I don't know where to transition from there.
There is no transition.
Speechless.
But I will tell you.
How are you doing otherwise?
Doing fine.
Yeah.
Doing fine. Other than that, yeah, I'm doing fine. I mean, it's just one of those weird things. I woke up one day, I'm like, man, I don't see so good. Went to the optometrist. He said, yeah, you better go to CEI. So if it worked for Hal McCoy, why can't it work for me, right?
Gotcha.
So we'll see.
Well, hey, we're going to keep you in our thoughts and prayers as always, Tom.
I need that, Mike. I do.
But we're bringing you in for the 22nd annual Skyline Chili Crosstown Showdown. And we're going to be talking high school football with you and some other topics as well. You're the GCL South Commissioner. I got a whole list of other things that you have titles for. So
ask and I shall respond. It's it's hard to believe it's been 22 years though. I mean, when you really think about it, started it kind of conceptually back in 1996. The first year was in 98, and while it has morphed and changed and kind of been tweaked and twinged over the years, you know, as you well know, high school football in this region still as strong as ever. Quality of players. In fact, you have to go back a lot of years, I think, to find the depth of players. I'm just using games in the showdown. I mean, I don't ever recall it being this deep with guys who have committed to big-time BCS schools. I mean, you have a multitude of schools and teams with 3 or more players. I mean, going to Ohio State, UC's done a great job getting some guys. But I think it's a lot of good players. I think it's kind of wide open. I mean, at the D1 level, I think it's wide open. But, yeah, we're excited to be here. 18 games the entire season again. We go from August 23rd to November the 1st, so we encompass the entire regular season, and I think we've got some really good matchups.
Okay, we're going to get into some more details in a quick second here, but I want to remind everybody this WCPO High School Insider Podcast is presented by our local Chick-fil-A restaurants, where the winning play is always chicken. Download the app today for extra points. And I believe this is like our 6th episode of the WCPO High School Insider Podcast in the past week. We're taping this on a Monday. I know, if I forget a couple things, our producer, Brian Nees, might be saying something in my ear because we've been all across town in Northern Kentucky, Western Hills, and also the Kenwood Town Center last week doing some special episodes with Chick-fil-A and bringing aboard a couple of those teams from each of those locations and a handful of players. And I thought it was really well done. And I want to give a shout out to our aforementioned Brian Nees for coordinating and doing a lot of the behind the scenes tech work and just set up and making us look really good as far as being on Facebook Live and doing all the audio with the podcast. So again, shout out to Brian, and he also won an Emmy by the way this past weekend in Louisville. So for the investigative series here at WCPO, a lot of our staff members won an Emmy. I was not included on that, but hey, I try my best. I keep my own space of the high school sports world and try to keep that going. But a lot of our colleagues, including Brian, won an Emmy. So a shout out to Brian for all his hard work and dedication throughout the year for that. And Brian, you know how much we appreciate you. So let's get right to it, Tom. This 22nd annual Crosstown Showdown, as we mentioned. Tell us why this year, besides the talent, the plethora of talented teams and players throughout the city and throughout the region, why this event is unique and special for this 22nd year?
Well, I think, Mike, the one thing, as you well know, the scheduling kind of dynamic has changed dramatically over the last 5+ years. And I don't know if there's blame or it's just a strategy. It's whatever you want to call it. A lot of the big school leagues have now gone to 8-game league seasons, which means they only have weeks 1 and 2. So there's all kinds of differing theories and formulas on, why a 7-team, an 8-game league, whatever it, does it give you a better chance? Does it not?
It's all about making the playoffs.
It is. Well, and I'm not a coach, so maybe I have a little bit of a different theory. My theory has always been in Ohio is if you're you can schedule your way in, but if you do that, odds are you're going to get waxed in the first round. I think we've seen that. I mean, I had an athletic director tell me one time, is your goal to make the playoffs or to win a state championship? And this AD's formula is, if it's to win a state title, then you have to play people. Now, there's no question when you look at certain teams, if you have two games that are non-conference early on and you lose both of those two, puts you in a precarious situation. But I would argue, are you good enough anyway? In the 1 year, St. X made it in at 5-5, had to win that last week against Louisville St. Xavier, and then went on to win 5 straight. Now, that's the only time that's been done. But I don't know. So, back to your question. I think the one reason why I feel so good about this year's Skyline Chili Crosstown Showdown is we've got classic rival games throughout the year. So that's what it's done. We used to compact it all into 2 weeks, really 10 days, if you will. And it got to the point where scheduling those non-conference games, for me, I'm not going to lie, I spent some sleepless nights because you got a team that's reliant on us, and we did that for years. They would just say, yeah, we're in the showdown, and then they would rely on me to find them an opponent. I'm not going to lie to you. There were 3 or 4 years where I had to wonder, am I going to be able to find somebody for them to play? And that would be a horrible thing. And we came close. But so this year, you now can take a Wyoming Indian Hill, week 10.
Sure.
I can take a Moeller Elder, Fairfield Princeton. I can get games like that. And I think that just makes the schedule stronger throughout the entire season.
Do you see, Tom, you mentioned trying to find games, and ADs tell me this all the time, how especially in the GCL South, where you're commissioner, where it's just tough to find local opponents. But do you see the theme or the trend continuing to be these kind of long-term contracts? Or as Elder, Gahanna Lincoln, they signed, multiple years. I mean, even Trotwood and Winton Woods, you see them opening up in a couple, home and home here and there. Is it just,
I think
it's more convenient at the end of the day?
Well, I think if you can get that, I mean, I'm not, I think there's a lot of schools out there, and their athletic directors and coaches would tell you that the schedule isn't necessarily ideal, but, and I know there's the multiplier, and if you only have 9 games, but if you're a coach and an AD, there's 10 weeks in the regular season, you want to play all 10.
Right.
So, yeah, Mike, I think if they can get those teams that are willing to agree to the multi-year packs, I think you take them. Yeah. I mean, and one of the challenges in the GCL South is with only 4 schools, there's only 3 league games. So, when you're in the GMC, you only have to find 2 non-conference games. In the GCL South, and especially the way the schedule falls, you have to find 7, and some of those are in weeks when everybody else is in league play. So that's what makes it so difficult. And let's be brutally honest, too, there's teams that won't play some of those teams for whatever reason. That's their choice. And if you can fill a 10-game schedule and are happy with that, that's your own prerogative. But no, I think it's grown. And I would tell you that I've seen over the last 3 to 4 years, use Wyoming as an example. It used to be only D1, right? But yet the other levels, the other divisions, they could still find games. That's not the case. Once you win to a certain degree, everybody starts calling.
Exactly.
And when those calls are coming in, they're not calls to extend the series. They're calls to say we're done playing you.
Right, exactly. Well, let's go over a few of these, especially early on. It's hard to believe first Friday night football is going to be a week from this Friday.
Frightening. No, it's not. Yeah, it's not hard to believe. It's when you do what we do, it's frightening. But yeah,
I know.
It's always open a week earlier for some in Kentucky if they choose to play in that week 0, and then everybody always opens that same week in Southeast Indiana and the Hoosier State. East Central Lawrenceburg. I mean, that's been a great rival game. It's packed no matter where it is.
Yeah.
It's a cool venue. That's setting on Route 50. East Central, when it's there, has a great facility too. So that's our opener on that Friday, August 23rd. You got Jake Miners, a new coach at East Central, and Lawrenceburg. Both of these programs, year in and year out, are seemingly contenders. There are fewer games in Northern Kentucky than there normally are in weeks here. I think there's just different schools of thought. And then we get into, on that Wednesday, August 28th, the true Ohio kickoff game, Northwest against Taft at the new Stargell Stadium. And that's going to be really cool. I mean, that should be a good football game.
First high school football game in Ohio in the entire season.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've tried to do that for years. Most times it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Then we have a couple games on that Friday night. Purcell Marion with Dave Worth against Reading. That's at Reading, the Veterans Memorial Stadium there in Reading. And we've also got Mount Healthy hosting Tippecanoe. So we try to, people ask, how do you get these games and how do you pick these games? And we, one of the things we've tried to do is it started as a largely big school event and it's morphed into there's good football at all different levels. So we try to give all different levels the experience of being in the showdown. And I know, there's a bunch of people, there's all kinds of comments and everybody's got a different way to schedule and they have no clue. I mean, no offense. They have absolutely positively no clue. Every year you get, why don't you have so-and-so play so-and-so? My simple response that would be, you don't think we've tried?
Right.
I mean, you've got to have two schools willing to play each other to have a game. And that's just, and again, I don't try to get, one of the formulas that I've always tried to stick to is I'm not going to twist somebody's arm to play somebody. If they don't want to do it, if they're not all in and they don't feel good about it, I don't want to try to drag somebody kicking and screaming into a game that at the end of it they're going to go, I told you so. So you either want to play those teams or you don't.
We're a few years removed from that NCAA legislation, which obviously prohibits you having games at Nippert Stadium in August.
Well, it's in August, but I would also tell you, I think it's through the but the dead period's August.
It extends.
It extends for me being a third party. So in other words, and that's why how an Elder versus Moeller, they're able to, if they are the school and they contact, they can do it. But from a third party situation, the rule is absolutely positively ludicrous, but I can't change that. When I can change NCAA legislation, no offense, I won't be doing what I'm doing. I'd be doing something else. I think it's crazy because I can tell you in all the years that we held games at Nippert Stadium when we were up at Yeager in Miami, nobody was ever peering through a telescope out of a window. It's nuts. I mean, you shouldn't penalize a good venue, a great event, and not just this event, but other events for what started as nonsense in AAU. If they would take care of that, they wouldn't have to worry about this. But again, that's for a whole other
soapbox.
day.
Look out.
Well, it's just stupid. I mean, let's be honest. What's wrong with having a cool venue? And, people will say, what about games at Paul Brown Stadium? You have to be realistic. Everybody goes back to that doubleheader. St. X Princeton, Elder Coleraine. 40,000 plus in PBS for the playoffs. Right? They seem to forget a year or two after that, 5,000 in there. I mean, and that's the point. PBS is a great venue, but the reality of it is, in my opinion, it's too big and too costly. Somebody wants to scratch off a $100,000 check? Call me. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, my question was, have you heard any inkling or any feelers out there of that may be churning around as far as the legislation goes that would allow you to use Nippert?
No, when I call, it's one of those calls you make in the off season just to say, has there been any movement? And to this point, there is not.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I think too, Mike, I think people, our kind of theme this year is there's nothing better than Friday nights. And I think you would agree that these venues, when you can go to the Pit and watch Moeller play Elder, it doesn't get much better than that.
That's great.
With Princeton, with that great, Mancuso Field at Viking Stadium, that Fairfield-Princeton game, everybody's looking to what? Can someone unseat Coleraine finally in the GMC? How about the game every year? St. Xavier at Coleraine. Those will be great nights, packed houses. And that's the essence of high school football. I'm not here to tell you we wouldn't love to be able to get back to Nippert and to use Shakely Athletic Center again. But until we can, we'll keep doing what we're doing this way.
For anybody who's watching this, it's not familiar with high school football here in this area, and most people probably are in our Facebook Live audience, but tell us what makes high school football on a Friday night here in Cincinnati so special.
Well, I think it's a couple things. I think it's the respective communities that just get so behind their schools. When people move to Cincinnati and are asked, where did you graduate? And they say, maybe I went to Kent State or Northwestern. They go, no, high school. So I think it starts there. I think it's the quality of play. I mean, when you look at a Saturday of college football, how many guys, when you hear their name called, you go, okay, I remember when he was at LaSalle, or I remember that dude played at Coleraine. And then you go to the NFL. I mean, in training camps right now, there will be, by the time NFL rosters are final, 20 of our Showdown alums plus who are on active NFL roster.
Pretty strong.
I mean, you think about Luke Kuechly, Kyle Rudolph, Sam Hubbard closer to home with the Bengals, and the list goes on and on. So I think it's quality of play. I think it's the fervor, the excitement. And honestly, I think it's brands like Skyline Chili. You think about Friday night, you think about communities, people go to Skyline before, after the games. It's a fun thing to do. Families, let's be honest, Mike, you lived here, you've lived here.
Yep.
It's communities, it's people people you see. But I think you can have all that, but I think what makes it over the top is the quality of programs. That doesn't necessarily mean that these teams are good enough to beat an IMG Sports Academy, but I would argue they shouldn't be.
Sure.
That's, to me, not really what the essence of high school football is.
So maybe we should have our own separate state title down here.
Well, maybe we should. You don't think it's ever going to, or maybe we should have Ohio Mr. Football.
Well, there you go.
At some point
That's
in time.
That's more realistic.
Maybe somebody can take a note.
First time since '92.
Isn't that crazy?
We should win it this year. If we don't,
well, then there needs to be some sort of. And I know the votes are skewed and all that, but I will tell you, back years ago, there used to be a newspaper called The Post. I know people are like, the what, the when? It used to be an ad. They used to deliver in the afternoon, by the way, on your driveway, and I wouldn't vote. And people used to get all riled and say, you have to vote. It's ludicrous. I didn't vote for the top 10 because you can't see all the teams. College football, there's a way. And it's much easier today.
Right.
Let's be honest. You can follow.
Sure.
But as you well know, scores are not conducive, and they're not an indicator.
Yep.
Yes, thank you. I was looking for that word, and you filled it in for me nicely. But you know what I mean. So I just didn't. Now, I think you do owe it, but see, then what it becomes is I'm defending. Then I'm going to maybe vote for people who I shouldn't because I'm saying, well, nobody else is. Who's going to do it if I don't?
Right, exactly.
That's not the right way either.
Right.
I don't know that there's an exact science, but I just think the way that's done is crazy.
Put on your GCL South Commissioner's hat for a second. What do you see out of those 4 teams in football this year?
I think it's going to be interesting. I think Elder clearly has an offense that's going to be one of the best offenses in Greater Cincinnati, if not the state. I think, like the last few years, Elder's always got a shot, right? I think it's defensively. Can they outscore people? Can they come up with enough big plays defensively? I think Moeller with Todd Nauman taking over. I think obviously they had a solid year last year that I don't know that anyone expected them to win the GCL South title. Elder had the lead, and then Moeller came back and won that game. So I think, who knows? I honestly think, and I'm not copping out, LaSalle, Moeller, and St. Xavier, I think there's a lot of questions. You got a new offense at St. X, new coordinator. I think I've heard from a lot of people that they're going to, be kind of wide open and, move the ball around. And LaSalle's got some talent. I think certainly at their division again. When you look to that showdown game, Winton Woods at LaSalle, how good can that one be? If Winton Woods, when you look at their schedule, it is brutal.
Yep.
Just brutal. Now, to their credit, they've played that schedule and done quite well. You just hope it doesn't.
Healthy.
You just hope they stay healthy. It doesn't take a toll on them. So I don't know. I think Elder might be kind of the front runner, but I think, as you well know, it's always unpredictable. And when you only have 3 games in the league, there's so little margin for error. Who knows?
That's right. What about just fall sports in general? Just starting a new school year. I mean, is there anything new on the horizon for the conference?
I think it's this is obviously what Moeller did in soccer last year.
Sure.
I mean, I think we'll be doing our leadership conference again. I know we're working on a date that'll be at Elder. No, I mean, I think this is Mike, as you know, there's a lot of great leagues, and it's not just the GCL South. It's the other GCL, the GGCL, the co-ed division, but it's the GMC, the ECC, the CHL. I mean, there are leagues for everybody, and I'm not just saying that as a canned answer.
Right.
I mean, I truly think you look at that ECC, and I know they're going to expand to 10 teams. And, when you look at the competition, even in football, look at how much that competition the last few years and the GMC, it's going to be an interesting year in the GMC. It is going to be fun. I think when you look at that Fairfield, Princeton, Coleraine, and others, there's some good football teams in that league.
Tom, I want to remind everybody this High School Insider podcast is presented by our local Chick-fil-A restaurants, where the winning play is always chicken. Go for the extra point with a side of their new macaroni and cheese, as I mentioned before. So I want to thank Chick-fil-A for all their sponsorships of this High School Insider podcast, as always. Why do you keep organizing this showdown? I mean, this is
what the hell else am I going to do?
22 years of doing great high
know,
school football, and I mean, like you said, you've gone through the ebb and flow of having the headaches and obviously the spotlight of this event that's been going on for so many years. But in its true essence, I know you're a big high school football fan, high school sports fan. But is there something behind that just keeps you going with all this?
I mean, I think because when I got, first of all, I had no idea that I'd be sitting. I didn't know if I'd be 10 years in, but I did know when I got to 20, I kind of thought, maybe, 2 decades, long time. Maybe it's time to go do something. But I would tell you, the response that I continue to get, that my team continues to get, and there's a lot of people who are critical aspects to this because I certainly can't do this alone. But the response that I got from people like, no, you're not going to not do this anymore. Like, I think this has become kind of a rite of fall, rite of late summer, rite of fall, and hope it's 70 degrees for some of these games, please. And rainfall.
No rain, please.
No rain. Oh, my God. Last year was brutal. But, I think it's that. When I heard from coaches and athletic directors that really enjoy, and I think it's for them, they, in essence, feel like their program has earned the right to be a part of this. And, that I guess that's it for me. I've often been a believer in you do something, as long as people want it, you do it. So I think it's that. And I think the opportunity to still give fans, and every fan's got their different theory, and that's fine. That's what makes this cool, right? I don't read any of that stuff, but they tell me they write that stuff. But I'm old school, Mike, and you know what old school means, don't you? That's the right way. And anybody ever tells you they do it old school, I say, yeah, that's because they're doing it the right way. But in seriousness, everybody having a voice and everybody having fun. I mean, at the end of the day, it's Friday night. This should be fun. We can do some cool promotional stuff. I just think it should be fun. And I think as long as you've got the quality of high school football, this is about these coaches, players, alums, teams, communities. That's who this is for.
As one of these coaches told me at our Chick-fil-A podcast last week, he said, kind of asking him about participation numbers and everything. He says, you know what? At the end of the day, this is, no offense to any other sports, this may be the toughest sport.
It's funny you say that.
To participate in, and and it's kind of that you got to get the buy-in from the kids. You have to be. You talk about being old school or whatever. Yeah. But I asked this coach. I said, "Well, how do you communicate with those players? You've been at this such a long time." And he said, "It's a challenge." But he says the guys that we have that are in the two-a-days and in the preseason,
they want to be there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
right.
It's funny you say that because I've had a couple coaches, because everybody, the obvious, the forefront of concussions and safety and all that. I get that, and I think that's all part of it. But I had a couple, in fact, tell me the same thing. This is hard. And I don't want to sound like that old timer,
right.
But I think it's not only is it hard, I think it's also year round. I mean, back when we went to school and played sports, you played one in the fall, you got to one in the winter, maybe you were a couple days late, and you went right. That's not the case today. And I think the commitment, so this coach's theory was, concussions play a part, but primarily he felt it was the difficulty to be good, what was required of you, year round now. So I can't dispute that.
And I don't know which coach you're referring to, but Doug Ramsey told me, and this was maybe last preseason, he was telling me, maybe numbers are down a little bit, but he said the guys that we have are committed. Right. And that's it. Maybe people can talk about the number of players are down or the number of teams statewide are down, but at the end of the day, you're fielding a good product. The guys that want to be there are there.
And it is a commitment. I mean, nobody would dispute that. It's a huge commitment. But I think, and I would tell you from what I've heard, numbers of soccer, which of course competes direct in the fall sports season, are up. I know, and this is maybe it's a small sample size, but football is still the only sport where you truly get recruited from your high school. Like that's the preeminent way that college recruiters and scouts, et cetera, watch you play.
Where do people get tickets, and where do they log on to get
all
more
the information? xtownshowdown.com. Our Twitter is at xtownshowdown. All the tickets are at the schools, so they're at the participating schools. I would tell you to contact your school's athletics department. And some of these games will be packed. I mean, some will definitively sell out. So you want to check that out early. All the monies benefit the participating schools and the host schools, and that's the way it should be. They work hard. And, being an AD these days, Lord have mercy. That's you talk about turnover, man.
Exactly.
I mean, it's and ADs and just baseball coaches since this past baseball season. I think there were 10 or more local baseball coaches. But we feel like we've got a good mix of Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky. We've got 3 really good games over there, Southeast Indiana. I feel like we've got the region pretty well covered. 18 games over 11 weeks, and it's hard to believe, but we're T-minus 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks to kick off. Yes.
there's always perks and giveaways you have at these games. Fans of the game, are you doing anything?
We are.
To that?
We're doing. Skyline will have that free Coney with the menu purchase either on the ticket back or on a coupon we'll pass out. I know Meijer, one of our sponsors, is going to have $5 off of $50 when you shop at Meijer. We'll be doing a Meijer family of the game, giving them some cool things. Cool. Mercy Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, they'll be doing the most valuable moms at Mercy Health schools. They'll have some premium items. We do a Mercy Health most valuable player, and we give them an award at the end of every game. So we believe in doing all that stuff. We have some extra contests, giveaways out there to just try to make the night a little more fun. We'll have our little showdown tent inside the main entrance where we'll be doing all that stuff and giving all that stuff away. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Can't miss you. The NBA schedule is going to be announced later today. MLB announced its 2020 schedule already. I got to ask you if you can give us a little teaser. Are you doing anything for basketball and then also for the spring for baseball?
Yeah, we'll be doing the Mercy Health Tip-Off Classic again, which we do each and every winter. And then, hard to believe, but year number 9 of the Skyline Chili Reds Futures High School Showcase. Yeah, and what's funny is already getting emails from baseball and softball coaches looking ahead to next year. And I think we're going to have some cool, especially for baseball, with the project at Bellevue Vets and St. Bernard, the old Ross Park where they're rehabbing, and going to be Reds Community Fund. Will give us a couple new facilities to use. So yeah, this stuff, as you well know, everybody says, "What do you do the other 11 months?" This stuff doesn't stop.
Yeah, you're right.
And it can't. So, which is a good thing, I guess, right?
Definitely. It's always good to stay busy and stay connected with the community. That's
otherwise I'd have to find
name
work,
of the game.
right? Some other kind of work. Trust me, this is work.
Chief, it's always a pleasure to have you
Thanks,
on
Mike.
the podcast.
I'd be remiss.
Go ahead.
My lovely wife, Lori, Kevin, Zach, Joe, the team of people that we have, without them, couldn't do this.
Awesome. Very well said.
They got to keep an old guy young. And I say that in all seriousness, yes.
This old school guy, right?
Old school, and a great job you guys do, all the high school stuff. I know you put a lot of people have no idea the time and effort and working the phones, and for the latest and greatest recruiting, right? Follow you, right?
That.
Well, hell, you got a ton of followers. They follow you for a reason.
It doesn't give me any extra money, but you can email my boss about that.
That's because you work in media. You ought to know that by now, right?
15 years in, I should know. In-game sports president, GCL South Commissioner, Skyline Chili Crosstown Showdown organizer, and any other title that he may have that I didn't mention.
Sad old man.
Tom Gamble.
Pitiful.
Thanks for joining me as
always,
Chief.
Coughing up my water. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to us. We'll be back next week talking more high school football. And as always, you can get this WCPO High School Insider podcast on Google Play, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. And our producer, Brian East, did a nice job putting together a YouTube playlist for all our episodes so far this school year. So don't want to miss, we spoke with OHSA Executive Director Jerry Snodgrass, also spoke with several area head football coaches and players on our Chick-fil-A podcast as well. We'll talk to you next week.